Yes, job people, this is Michael Shamai representing. I will say, Hail the Lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Ras Tafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Ras Tafari.
The time has come for lions to tell I and I own story. Yes, you're listening to Lion's Voice. I is Shilliam from the island of St. Croix. Yeah, I'm bringing to you Rastafari vibes. Can you feel it? Rastafari. Babylon born when Rasta come together. Can you feel it? Rastafari. Because Babylon done when I and I come together. Look how we live together, look how we work together, Oh, Babylon done when Rasta come together. Hail I, Rastafari, His Majesty and Empressment and bless. Yeah man, hail him from St. Croix, Rastafari, hail you.
Aye.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lamb's voice. Now put it, I jolly for say that.
Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to the lion voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here. Hear me now. Oh, yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
Lion voice. Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice. Well, Haile Selassie the first of the Almighty, and this is the Chas Match Kwasi. Well, the Almighty granted true love, and some guy a go on like say it need remix. And I treat true love like some junk food or some cheese tricks. Well, if the nation for rise, had them people that need fix. And this is the reason why Haile Selassie the first and Empress Menen exists. Hear this. Well, how about this? Some people want fix. Some people them not ready for relationships them not know. Moral code them hold pan slackness. Be careful out the road or you a hug and you a kiss and me say. How about this? Some people want fix. Some people them not ready for relationships them not know. Moral code them hold pan slackness. Actors and actresses just watch them practice. When she see man and she think about her money, every weekend she a search for a dummy. Them your boy Joe grind, them a study. Even though the boy know things coulda get bloody. If him book up in a hobby find out. Now you in somebody house with a matic in a mouth. The things we do fi clout, what is it about? You fi seek true love, love it at the younger road, yo. How about this? Some people want fix. Some people them not ready for relationships, them not know.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabet is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Lich Tafari's father, Ras Tafari, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Tafari is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Tafari knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Lich Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting, and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwesi Bansu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwesi Bansu, aka the Chasmach Kwesi, aka Ras Kwesi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man, creative industry attorney. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Talk Live. Welcome to the Lion Voice Network, and welcome to Lion Talk Live, where the lions and the lionesses are telling their own story. We have a very special episode for the item. We are here on a noon night. We were on Thursday evening. We have moved to Wednesday. We are creating a mosaic for the family, Ras Tafari Independent Non-Aligned Media. I reason with the Honorable Priest Isaac and the Tiger's Nest family. He has a live that happens every Thursday, 8 p.m., the Rastafari Round Table. So I move the live so we wouldn't have that conflict in the interest of that unity and that collective security. We are going to have an exclusive interview with Honorable Priest Isaac for our Lion Pride on Patreon. Historic meeting of the minds. Powerful. We're going to put that exclusively on Patreon for the Lion Pride on Patreon. The item asks, what is the Lion Pride on Patreon? Well, hold on. Let us first explain what's happening here. And this is our first live, by the way, since the channel was suspended. We got suspended, family. They let them know. We had an episode, a live that dealt with vaccine exemption, and it was in contravention to the World Health Organization guideline, and YouTube flagged us, and we were suspended for a strong. So this is why, even though we're here on YouTube, we are mobilizing outside. So if we don't have your email, make sure you check in on the Patreon and we get your email. I see a portion of ones have been trotting in for the free membership on Patreon. You can join for free. Big up all of those members, because we have your email. You'll get the newsletter, and we'll be able to keep that link. This is an era of censorship, and if you don't say what the man them want, you say people, you are going to be taken down. We are also, deprioritizing the algorithm, so people are not seeing the videos. So please make sure you like and share and comment, and we have to do this the old-fashioned way, which is manual labor. But I am grateful for this experience. I'm grateful to be a servant of the community, to connect the dots, so that we're not going to third-party platforms to talk about Rastafari, and we are not having to be subjected to only controversial and mix up and blend up when it comes to Rastafari. We want to hear the greatness and the glory of what this liberty has brought to creation. And the guest I have tonight is going to help us to do that. I'm very excited. The item know I come out of the university experience. I found His Majesty while attending university as a university student at Howard University here in Washington, D.C. So university is special. I was born on a university campus. I was born at the University of the West Indies, Mona campus in Jamaica. So university have a special place in my heart. One of the things that I love about this faith is that His Majesty reserved the portfolio of education for himself, and that he established Haile Selassie University in 1961, evolving it from the University College of Addis Ababa. That even as the chess match, His Majesty was taking his own money from his royal trust, and he was funding his bright Ethiopians, the sons of different nobles, working class people. He was sending them to universities all over creation. I want us to just think about the mind, that Christ consciousness, when most people are chasing girls as teenagers. The Chazmach is already planning for the future of Ethiopia. That confidence, that's the Rastafari man standard that we are bringing in this time. World War III is here, family. We know that. So we have to be prepared, and this platform is going to help us to prepare this. So if you're just looking for entertainment, this might not be your platform. The Lion Pride might not be for the item. But if you are about this Armageddon and you are chatting with a Rastafari, Pan-African, just a conscious human, then this is the platform, because this is an action platform. So we're going to be talking about higher education today. Someone who exists in that space, someone who is a department chair for one of the most prestigious educational institutions on the planet. And he's a Rastafari brethren. So I just want the item to understand the levels where the global family has reached today. This is not Rastafari of old, where we're, consigned to the gully bank. We are consigned to hide in a bush and them think that no, Rastafari are all through every institution of great importance. We have ministers of government, all kinds of things, doctors, architects, engineers, and this is the platform where you will hear their story. All right. Before I get into the guests, big up Ras Lidge, Ramia King Design. You'll see me sipping when I get thirsty in the interview is Ramia King Design. This is a Rastafari business. You saw them at the beginning. Hot or cold liquids, the man them deal with the thing appropriately, and he has seen the vision of Rastafari independent media, and he supports financially by sponsoring. So I have to big up Ras Lidge, big up CMAS Life as well, Ras Wally, Ras Wulde. These are brethren that we hold dear, because They're not only watching and spreading the word, but they are, supporting with sponsorship. And if you have a small business, we are open to the reasoning. You know what I mean? Come and join the family. We're taking this to the highest level in terms of independent, non-aligned media. All right. We got the housekeeping out of the way. I know I'm long-winded, but that's why the item love I, because you know that I'm going to reason if one thing. But I like to bring forward ones who also like to reason just as much as I, so we can really elevate the discourse out there. And tonight's guest is one such brethren. This brethren is coming out of the UK, Rastafari experience, has several academic papers and is published academic. So we can get into that as well. His area is really decolonization of higher institution. He speak all over the world. I put the brethren in Google, and Google spit out some of the works them, you know what I mean? So that's the type of guest that we have tonight. So please, family, Lion Pride. I know many will watch this after the fact, because we changed days and thing, and yeah, me know say the family I got yard in. But Lion Pride, whenever you watch this, help I to welcome warmly our guest for the evening, Professor Robbie Shilliam Ford. Royal greetings.
Where's Kwasi? Give thanks.
Yes,
it's an honor to be on the network. It's an honor to be on the network.
Yes. And I should have said Shilliam. Sorry.
It's good, man. It's good. No problem.
So, I've been looking forward to this for some time, hearing of the works from various ones in the community who, I respect in terms of their own academic achievements. Ras Jolani, Ras Wynn, Sister Colleen, many others, who have Mama Walete, Dr. Walete, who is one of our Lion Pride and Patreon supporters as well. All have spoken so highly of the work. We've had a chance to reason briefly, but we haven't really had a chance to really go deep. And it just so happens I do have a network, so we're going to do that tonight. We're going to go deep, you know what I mean? Because I know your brain is well ready. So just tell us, where the I was born and the journey to Rastafari. Take us in the Lion Talk time machine.
Yes, give thanks. So I was born in the UK in 1969. On my dad's side, it's kind of coal mining in the UK, and then on my mum's side, that's the African connection, and it comes through the Indian Ocean, actually. So my granddad came to the UK in 1907. And what's interesting is that when I was growing up in the UK, ones might know, by that point in time, the black presence was very much Caribbean, if not Jamaican and Trinidadian, right? But before that moment, it was a very Pan-African space. The I will know ones from the continent, ones from everywhere, right? So when I was growing up, anything to do with blackness was gravitated towards the Caribbean, and then of course especially Rastafari. Yeah. And I started to cite up Rastafari, I think, in a way in which many ones would have outside of the Caribbean probably, which is through 12 tribes. And, the way in which 12 tribes put on dances, open themselves up to the masses and the youth, and the music is the message, right? So I came to know Rastafari through 12 tribes. I'm not 12 tribes, but that's how that was the door that opened it for I. And then, and we can get into this later if the I wants, right? But I was on a journey, young dude, a little bit of a sketchy journey, right? You know, towards Rastafari. But then I went to university late, so I left school early, right? And then I went back to kind of the equivalent of community college in my late 20s, yeah. And so I started doing my degrees in my late 20s, early 30s.
Were you Rastafari at that point when you returned to university?
I was on the path.
You were on the
right?
path.
I was on the path.
Did you have locks? When did you?
Yes, I had locks.
When did you first put on your locks?
23, 24, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, 24, 24.
Just to establish the timeline.
Yeah, man. About 93, 94.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that, man. Yeah. But you know, the interesting thing, Ras Tafari, right? And I'll be honest, is that I cut my locks when I started to do my PhD.
Okay.
And it took me some while to figure out how and why I dropped off the path.
Okay.
Right. And it's something to do with university.
Wow.
Yeah, we can get into that. But anyway,
we definitely want to get into that. So
yeah, man.
So how old were you when you started your PhD? So you're a doctor.
Yes, I. Yeah.
Okay, because I was looking and I noticed you don't write doctor on your
I'm a doctor, man.
Humble, humble man. But I thought so. You know?
Yeah, I'm one of them doctors that you don't want to have on the plane. You know what I mean? If someone says they're a doctor, I never put my hand up, man. I'm a doctor of philosophy, right?
Yes. Give thanks.
But yeah, so yeah, man. And then I did some traveling, and then I ended up we ended up in New Zealand, and in fact, it was kind of grounding with the indigenous people there. The Maori people there, that put me back on a path.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
So
you're on the path to consciousness, and then doing your PhD. Was it pressure from the institution to look a certain way to be taken seriously? What was the impetus to trim? No overs, man. I mean, and especially if you think about, like, the UK is not quite the same as the US, right? Yes.
So like the I went to Howard, right? So there's no HBCUs in the UK.
Yeah.
There's that, you know what I mean? And the black presence in university remains to this day very, very small, right?
Okay.
Yeah. But you know, I found myself when I went back to university and I was doing my undergrad, I found myself like literally running through the passages, running through the halls. I wanted to get in and get out. And I loved the library, but everything else felt like I was on not hostile ground, but it wasn't my place. I was an interloper.
Okay.
And it was really only halfway through my PhD that I started to think slightly differently about the place, right? And I think that's the kind of thing that we're talking about when we're talking about decolonizing the academy. And it comes in a lot of different ways. But one should not underestimate the degree to which some of these spaces, not all of them, but some of these spaces are feel a certain way for a good reason, which is that they want to bracket off any sense of black thought and black presence and other people's presences as well, by the way, you know, including class things, from that place. You know, like I did a postdoc in Oxford, and you know what was really interesting about that, teaching them Oxford kids, what was really interesting. So I used to give them people like, you know, to read, you know, because I do politics, right? So I used to give them people like Karl Marx. I used to give them Frantz Fanon, right? Now, what's interesting about this? Those two thinkers, in different ways, basically say that power and hierarchies and inequalities and oppressions are all structural. In other words, meaning it's not simply because you're stupid that you're poor. It's not simply because it's not because you come from a bad family or bad stock that you're poor. There are structural things which make it much more likely for certain ones in certain places to remain poor and to remain oppressed, right? This is the structural argument, right?
Okay.
Now, I used to give it to the working class youth who were in Oxford, right? I used to give, and they hated it. They hated that argument, right? I used to give it to the rich ones. They loved it.
Wow.
Why? Why? Because for the rich ones, it simply affirmed, right, why they were there. Because this is structural. Their parents were rich. They're going to be rich.
Yes.
They've been trained up their whole life to be expecting to walk through these corridors of power, ostentatious.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Right? So Fanon and Marx and all them ones basically affirmed it helped them to explain themselves to themselves.
Yes.
Now, you take the poor, you take the working class ones, right? They have been told that the only reason they're walking through them spaces is because of their own merit.
Yes.
Right? Now, it's not untrue. Don't get me wrong. Merit obviously is a super important thing, right? One's own works. That's super important. But what these people were basically saying to them was, well, you're kind of lucky you got there. You know what I mean? Because this place is not for you. So they really didn't like it, right?
And colonial capitalism, one of the features is that it has that filtration system where they can sieve off, the working class, the best and the brightest, and then employ them in protecting and preserving the system. So
that's right.
You always have that illusion that I can make it, because look at Obama, he's the president, you know what I mean? So how could I say that this system is designed to keep me down when there's a black president, when there's a black CEO over there,
Right.
So we have these individual beacons of success that keep like the lottery, I can win the lotto, so I'm going to keep on playing. I mean, that's what you're saying.
That's right. And I think if we're thinking about the university as a space, right, then I think, if we're thinking about kind of from colonial times till now, like I was saying, one of the only kind of roots of advancement in the colonies, in the Caribbean, on the continent as well, was to get educated, get to a good school, and then go to college in England or whatever, and then come forward again, as an administrator, as a teacher, as that kind of bureaucracy thing, right? The colonial intelligentsia, as they call it, right?
Yes.
And then we have to look to ones like C.L.R. James, Walter Rodney, as ones who kind of buck that system. So in other words, they went through it, they got their degrees, they proved their intellectual worth.
Yes.
But they at the same time criticized the system and tried to think about how to make it different. Do you see what I mean? So we're working in that kind of space.
Walter Rodney became a legend because he was in the ghettos of Kingston and other places, basically sharing the knowledge with, and think about, that shouldn't be such a revolutionary thing, but it happens so infrequently. There's this divide of education. There's a literacy divide, in the general population, particularly in the Caribbean. I'm just returning from Jamaica, and this is one of the topics that I'm having with brethren and sisters, is the literacy gap. We have a lot of adult illiteracy and semi-literacy, you know what I mean? And because of that, there's a lot of fighting against progress because of fear. You know what I mean? That ones have, because they're not literate to be able to go check things for themselves to you know what I mean? So this is a major issue, and we're going to talk about that later, because I think adult education has to be a pillar of any Rastafari university model in terms of how we can encourage our family to get that higher education, even starting from the adult phase. But we'll get there. I want to go into the eyes. So PhD, take us to your PhD. You're nice and trim up like a well, a great scholar. You know what I mean? You put on the uniform of success. What was the next move? What caused the eye to now return to the dreadful and terrible imagery of the original man?
Yeah. In fact, I wanted to do my PhD on Marcus Garvey.
Okay.
And where I was, no one did anything like that. Now people do a bit, but
Yeah.
when I was doing it, there was nothing, man. So, I just didn't want to be Billy No Mates, as they say in the UK. I didn't want, I needed to be able to talk to people, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I did German philosophy. I did a whole PhD on German philosophy, right? And it was an education, and it was good, right?
Yes,
But
the
then
Germans
afterwards,
are fascinating people. The history of
fascinating,
Prussia.
man.
I did a lot of study on Otto von Bismarck and
Scene. All right. Yeah. Okay.
the Berlin Conference. I wanted to know
That's
who was
right.
this man
That's
who
right.
convened this conference, and fascinating
That's
history.
right.
The Prussian princes.
We know His Majesty was interested in Frederick the Great, right?
Yes, I. And key, as you say, and then also the divide between the Catholic princes and then the Protestant movement, Martin Luther, that rose up is very fascinating. The Germans took down Rome. We have to always remember that the German tribes. So the Germans are not to be trifled with. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And to be honest, the Franks, the Germans, the Germanic tribes are really the major tribes of Europe when you go into the history. You know what I mean? So it really is a fascinating. So I'm just saying that what the idea is very fascinating to I.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Thanks. Just so. Yeah. And then after I finished the PhD, I wanted to go. I went back and started doing Marcus Garvey again.
Okay.
and then I ended up in New Zealand because my wife and I, we were both like, we got to get out of the UK, and she wanted to go. She's from Zimbabwe, and she wanted to go somewhere totally different for a while. Okay. So the place on the other side of the world literally is New Zealand. So anyway, I ended up getting a job there right now. So like my life is also a series of just feeling utterly naive and just constant refreshing and constant relearning, man. Okay. So like I got down to New Zealand, and I was like, what are these people gonna know about the Haitian Revolution? I'm gonna just blow their minds. I'm gonna talk to them about the Haitian Revolution. So I did a talk. This Maori brethren, indigenous people there called Maori, right? This Maori brethren come up to me afterwards, and he said, "Oh, by the way, that was great. Oh, and did you know, we Maori knew about the Haitian Revolution in the 1860s. Oh. And in fact, we wrote a whole set of newspapers from a printing press we got from Austria. We wrote a whole set of newspaper articles for ourselves on the Haitian Revolution, saying this is our model. This is our model to get rid of the settlers who are taking all the land." So then I was like, wow, all right. So anyway, then I started to find out there were Maori Rastafari, there'd been Maori Black Panthers, Polynesian Panthers. So, Maori people have got this incredible ability, like a lot of indigenous people, right? To make the past alive. You know what I mean? To use the past, not as a dead thing, but as a resource for the present, right? And one of the things they do most about that is what they call genealogy, or in their language, whakapapa, whakapapa means in their language, whaka is make, papa is ground, papa is the kind of spiritual earth. And so to make a ground. So they do what I and I do, which is grounding. Okay. See? So now, and grounding is to know where you're coming from and to use the resources you have from where you're coming from to set the future in a different direction.
Rooted.
So yes, so through those years there, that got me to return to Rastafari in a really serious way, and then to think about how to forward the Rastafari movement and principles in academia.
So coming, by this time you're an academic, you're a high scholar. How do you reconcile the divinity of His Imperial Majesty, this Ethiopian emperor? This is one of the challenges that some have. Even those who say they are Rasta, when you really confront them on the divinity, some people start shake like a leaf and they start stutter. how was the eye, how did the eye
Mm.
confront the divinity of his imperial majesty?
So I think, so there's a number of things around that, right? I think the first thing that I would say is I see it, I don't see anything supernatural about it.
Okay.
I think the word supernatural is kind of, it's not dumb, but it's just like, if there's a natural, how can there be a supernatural? It's got to be all natural. So for I Man, it's the Almighty I. It's the representation. It's the Godhead in each of I and I. It's what I and I aspire towards, right?
Really?
And so I think, and that actually connects to our reasoning, because in academia, if you said something like Haile Selassie is the Almighty I, many people would laugh and say that's just crazy. There's nothing rational about it. Where's the evidence? Da, 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 da. Yet let me tell you some of the founding myths which much of academia is based upon, right? And I do social science, right? I do social science and humanities, right? Here's one of the big myths, right? Now listen to this and tell me if you think this is reasonable, right? But much of academic social science, humanities, social science especially, is based on this. Humanity existed for thousands of years, just going round and round in a cycle, only scratching an existence, not really understanding themselves, their minds, the world around them, the way they interact with each other, the social, the economic, the political. And then at one point, around, say, the 1600s or 1700s, a couple of boys in Europe started to talk about how they needed to be self-reflective, and they had to have confidence in using their own reason to dispel illusion and mysticism, and to penetrate into the higher understandings of the universe and the mind and humanity. And so after humanity had been languishing for hundreds of thousands of years, tens of thousands of years in this repetitive cycle, a few boys in Europe figured out what the universe was actually about. And from there, now we live in this modern world. And everything before that, in history and geographically, is just junk. Now, if I said that to you, you'd have a kind of question about it.
You see, I'm laughing.
But this is the thesis of modernization.
Aye.
This is the thesis of living in the modern world, right? And this is the thesis that a lot of social science is based upon, that we are somehow radically different, and it's because of a few people in Europe who figured out how the world actually works and how the universe actually works. Now, so getting back to the divinity of His Majesty, me now saying I don't believe in the supernatural because there must only be the natural. I'm far more rational than these dudes talking about how humanity languished. But then how did humanity survive? How did humanity survive for tens of thousands of years?
And then how do you
know what I'm saying? You get the illogic in it, right?
How do you explain the Church of Lalibela or the pyramids in Giza?
The pyramids. I mean, right? And so now that then, Ras Kwasi, gets to the heart of the matter about decolonizing the academy.
Okay.
It gets to the heart of the matter. And here is how I would put it. There is and I'll reason on and on, so the I has got to interject, right? So now there's a word in the social science language which is called hermeneutics, right? And hermeneutics is about interpreting, right? Okay. So one of the fundamentals when we think about how we live as humans with each other, right, is interpretation, right? All life and social life is interpreted. In other words, we want to find meaning. So we find meaning in our actions, in others' actions, in I and I actions. We are always interpreting. right? That's the fundamental for understanding social science, right? Now, hermeneutics comes from a Greek god called Hermes.
Okay.
Right? All right. Now, Hermes is called the messenger of the gods. And there are two Hermes. One Hermes is very humble, right? He's the gatekeeper. He lives on the crossroads, the thresholds of houses, and his role is to help ones to cross over, right? So now the eye is immediately thinking about Legba, and that is exactly the same, exactly the same. The keeper of the crossroads, right? So now this is what interpretation is. That I and I are always seeking to bind together, to figure out how it is that I and I interact, to close down distance, to find connection and what the relation is that's already there. You see what I'm saying? Now, park that for a second, because there is something radically democratic about that very principle.
Okay.
That each one teach one. Each one comes with the ability to interpret, and then we make life based on our shared interpretations and struggles over that sometimes and all that, right? Nothing in there, if we say that's a human faculty, every single human being has it in the same way. How we develop it is a different thing. But we are born with the capacity, and as humans, we have the capacity to interpret. All right. Now, when we look at the universities in Europe, most of them start as appendages of the church.
Okay.
Right. Now
this is what they pay the big bucks for. Go ahead.
well, look. So now you know when I did my postdoc at Oxford, you'll see them old colleges, and they all have a chapel in them. And many of the places where you eat used to be the places where the acolytes would congregate as students and all sleep in the same area around a fire and what have you and all that, right? So universities were training for the priesthood.
Yes.
Now,
this is almost universal, that the spiritual houses of creation controlled education, literacy.
That's right.
You know, even in Ethiopia, if you look at the script, education was consigned, and this is why Ethiopia had a literate tradition, is because education was consigned to the monasteries. You would learn to read and write in the ancient. So what was happening in Europe, and I'm glad you touched on this spiritual, because we're going to talk about a Rastafari University. Stay tuned, family. We're going deep tonight. We're going into the root tonight. We have Dr. Shilliam here, family. If you're on Facebook, let us know where you're watching from. If you have questions, put them in the chat. Lion Pride, we are on Wednesday night now. We are changed to Wednesday, no longer on the Thursday. We're bringing the Rastafari family, from the doctors to the garrison, right here on Rastafari Independent Non-Aligned Media. If you're not subscribed, please go to YouTube and subscribe to the Lion Voice Network. All right, so talk to us about this connection between the church and the universities and the history of the university. Let's set the context. What is a university?
Yeah. So the word comes from a place where all different students from different groups can come and congregate. That, and it's kind of coming out of Italy. But let me just backtrack a second to this thought about the church, because it's really important. And one can think about Timbuktu or you know, it's true, right? You know, this is esoteric. Much of this comes out of esoteric knowledge. Now, here's the thing. You have an original Christianity, which is democratic. It's for the poor people, right? It's a leveler. It's a leveler of power, right? But then in Europe, you know, with the Catholic Church, and then, you know, by the medieval time, you've got the church putting itself over the people, right? And so these universities become repositories of esoteric knowledge, right? Where the ordinary people are no longer allowed or supposed to have a direct line to God, to their own image. They can only learn about what God's mind says through the priesthood. So now the university separates itself off, right? And you can only come to know about the esoteric knowledge through a group of interlopers who were called the priesthood, right? Now, by the time you get to the 1700s, right, you have people, like the Germans, like Immanuel Kant, famous philosopher, saying, have courage to use your own understanding. That was his term, and what he meant was, now the priest's day is done. Now it's the philosopher's day, right?
Okay.
But the philosophers occupied the same place in the hierarchy. They didn't want to let that place go.
Yes.
So they created languages like hermeneutics, and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
To claim that they had a higher understanding, right, of what made people do the things they do than the peoples themselves, right? From this,
stick a pin, because I want to just touch. This is one of the reasons, and it's so ingenious, why people do not recognize the power that the Vatican wields. But when you look at some of the top universities on creation, the top high schools, these are institutions that are Catholic institutions. Some of them are household names. We have Georgetown here in Washington, D.C. We have Catholic, but you have some prominent institutions, some of the best high schools in Jamaica, for example, Campion College, all of these big names that you would hear, George's, these are all Catholic institutions. So between the schools and the churches, you're able to wield a great deal of soft power, and that's how the Vatican reign has always been exercised. In the Middle Ages, there was hard power, yes, wars, and we know about crusades, but that is not the strength. And I tell people the Vatican has one of the most intricate intelligence agencies through the confessional system, where they're able to filter information from the very local level up through, to the head there in the Vatican. So, a lot of people, don't really realize the power, and remember that even though the Protestant Church, the Church of England, is the offshoot of the Catholic Church, when we look at wealth, when we look at land holdings, the wealth of the Vatican is almost unparalleled. And their library, their infamous library, the repository, as you say, of esoteric knowledge. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the books from the great library of Alexandria and these places, you would find them housed in that Vatican library. But continue. I just wanted to interject because in Rastafari we burn Rome, fire and the Vatican, but I want us to understand real and how revolutionary it was for our elders to be able to identify the cut through all of the smoke, to just go right to the head and to recognize, the head of this Babylonian system in terms of and then how it spread through the university system. But continue.
No, that's right, man. That's right. So this move out of the priesthood into the philosophers carries that whole thing that I just said, right? Yes. So suddenly now it's not that all humans can have the same ability to interpret. There's a cabal of people who now accrete to themselves that ability, right? And say that, and they give themselves a special language, right? And then they say everybody else, no, they can't reach them kind of levels. And in anthropology, there's this two words, right? Emic and etic, right? Okay. And they kind of, and this is what this is about. The emic is any set of interpretations that are part of a people, right? So, for example, you know, for I and I, liberty would be an emic term, right?
Okay.
Ethic is a term that arises from outside of the people to explain what the people think on their behalf,
Okay.
right? So ethic would be lifestyle. When Rastafari say liberty, what they really mean is lifestyle. You get what I mean?
Yes, I.
And if I said, no, that's not what that means at all, they'll be like, yeah, but you know, you're in the thing so deep, you can't extricate yourself and get a higher objective platform and get languages and words which can be universal in their application. You keep saying liberty, but no one else says liberty. So we'll say lifestyle. And then we can say, oh, you know, the Bushmen of the Kalahari, they have a certain lifestyle. Rastafari have a certain lifestyle. Have a certain lifestyle, right? So now what that I can see is that there is this massive distinction that's going on in terms of who is accorded the ability to interpret on a universal level. Right? Now, that is what carries over into academia. The anthropologists, when they come through empire, they're going to tribes, they're going to groups, and they come into Rastafari sometimes, right? And they're saying, we'll explain what these people think better than they can. They can't explain themselves. We can explain them for them. Do you see what I mean? So this is a function of power the same way, right? And of course, I'm saying it in broad brushes. Not all anthropologists are like this. Not all academics are like this. But this is the structure. If we're talking about the structure of power, this is what we confront, right? So that when we go into university, we are supposed to separate ourselves from the people, put ourselves on this pedestal, learn the esoteric language, which is supposed to then give us the ability to be closer to God than anybody else and to explain everybody on everybody's behalf. So this is a power thing, because of course what you're always doing is you're saying that people don't have the capacity to interpret and explain and make sense of their own lives, right? And of course, you know, individuals are one thing, but when one has a group of people who have put institutions together like the Lions Voice Network, do you know what I mean? To build a collective capacity to actually explain oneself for the purpose of explaining the whole world, right? Then this is what is actually just dashed away with. You know, you need to come to university and learn how to think properly.
Okay.
You get me? Now, of course, what I know is that the Rastafari elders in Jamaica, you know, the university where the I was born used to be called University College of West Indies, right? And abbreviated to UC, right? And Rastafari called UC Blind, because what was the university teaching? It was teaching anything but the lives of the majority of the people who were in Jamaica. They were teaching kings and queens and English literature and, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? And not actually helping ones and ones to explain their own lives on their own behalves and actually do the biblical injunction of iron sharpening iron. Because the way in which this knowledge system works is not iron sharpens iron. The premise is that the majority of humanity are blunt and you can't sharpen them. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
You just have to cut them, and you know the etymology of science is to cut.
And I just had a thought that colonialism itself has become a religion. You know, the orthodoxy of the colonial worldview, as you have said, you know, which is a Eurocentric worldview. You know, there is, you know, the evidence does not support that, but it's still seen as the orthodoxy.
Thank you.
Terms of
thank you.
Extreme academia, you know what I mean? It's still very much in the mainstream.
People still think aliens created the pyramids.
Yes, and also
because they couldn't think to themselves, and that the pyramids were created by slaves because those people couldn't think otherwise, couldn't think how you could mobilize a mass of people to create such an incredible thing.
And also that Greece is the fountain of education, you know. And Greece still holds that supremacy even over Kemet. You know, they don't even give Kemet that honor that the Greeks gave it. You know what I mean? Or Ethiopia. They don't give accord the honor that the Greeks themselves gave these lands. So it really, brings us to our topic, which is, Rastafari University. How do we create something now? Before we get into the Rastafari University, I want to just make note that one of the seminal achievements of Kadamawi Haile Selassie I was the establishment of Haile Selassie University. I mean, I started in my intro talking about, how he sent out Ethiopian students, from a very tender age, to educate himself. So the far eye, the vision that he had, to know that I'm going to need modern ministers to be able to administrate a modern government, and they're going to need to have that exposure, so that when I'm giving instructions, I'm not coming up against a brick wall. Because before that, the church again had a monopoly pretty much on education. Menelik had started a small school in the palace for the nobles, but outside of the church infrastructure, there was not any type of public education in Ethiopia prior to His Majesty. And so the University for His Majesty was one of the principal institutions that he used, or tools that he used, to prepare this modern government. As Rastafari evolves into what we are evolving into, the university, I think, shares the same, because to transform and to what Rastafari's role is to create that alternative to Babylon, because we can't burn Babylon and we don't have an alternative. So this leads us to, this channel is about the building of Zion, heaven on earth, and really getting into the nuts and bolts of that. And to do that, we need to train our own cadre of professionals that can execute that. Hence comes the need for a Rastafari University. The I in real life is a department chair for a university. So there are very few who know more about the university system as Rastafari than the I. So I'm very honored to have this thought exercise with the I. I want the I to really just outline why a Rastafari University is important and what that could look like.
So I mean, this is a kind of question where, and I like the way the I set it up. It's a kind of question where either or doesn't quite help us. It's got to be an and we take that from His Majesty. Like the I said, His Majesty set up that university system, opening it to the people as much as it could be. Wasn't afraid to go and get honorary doctorates from Oxford and however many other places, went to Howard, all that kind of stuff. So we have to take that seriously.
Yes.
We have to take that as seriously as the fact that in, all the other parts of, or many of the other parts of the African continent, that college system was a college system connected to the UK and in the most colonial fashion. So we have to take both of those things very seriously, right?
Yes.
There is an African American woman called Audre Lorde who's famous, and one of the things she's famous for is this phrase: "The master's tool will never, the master's tool will never kind of cut down the master's house, right? You can't use the master's tool to deconstruct the master's house, right?" Now, some people think that means something like, then what we have to do is burn out all the university systems, ignore all that, and then just simply do our own thing, right? Now, that phrase needs to be reasoned on a little bit more, because who said it was the master's tools in the first place, right? So the master might have stolen them tools to build the master's house. Do you get what I mean? Right? So if the master's tools build the master's house, that's what we don't want. But we can't say that the tools are the master's. You know what I mean? So I can use some of them tools to build our own house. Because
Wasn't the first university in Africa? Wasn't the
Thank
first?
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sankore
Exactly.
chant that in the Nyabingi.
Yeah.
I know there was a university in Morocco in an ancient time, but really the mystery schools were essentially university institutions.
Yeah,
You know?
they were higher knowledge, esoteric higher knowledge. Right?
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir. So this isn't a model that is unknown to I know.
Yes.
The problem is that the model got taken over, and it got taken over and put in this colonial fashion where you got this small lot up at the top saying that no one else can think about anything for themselves, right? So then what a Rastafari University, I would say, has to be a set of interconnecting institutions all working together. So what I and I are doing tonight is one example of that, right? That, we have ones in university spaces. We have ones who are building university institutions outside of them spaces, right? But we're connecting. So what we do with the School of the Sacrament is we use, university connections and university knowledge, from and resources, frankly, right? From Johns Hopkins, Morgan, Morehouse, Howard. We had some Howard students on our summer school last year.
Hold on, I want to set this up properly because you're talking about SOSACRU. One of the things I want the Lion Pride family to understand is that this is already in motion. Of a Rastafari University. So
yes,
and we're gonna bring on. I'm reasoning with Dr. Jalani. We're gonna bring him on shortly as well to talk about the genesis of this concept.
The SOSACRU Chancellor.
Yes, you know what I mean, and you know what I mean. So tell us what about SOSACRU. Just kind of set it up so that people who are not familiar understand what it is, because I think it's also very critical to this reasoning that we're having.
Yes, I. So and Ras Jalani can tell the story as well.
Yes.
Better than I. But yeah, Ras Jalani, Ras Wayne, Mama Walete, Bro Jakes, a number of ones.
Sister Colleen,
Sister Colleen, that's right. It's very important in it right now, man. That's right. And what the way that I think Ras Jalani might put it would be to talk about the legislation over the holy herb in Jamaica, and the way in which universities got an ability, got a pass to do research with the herb, and business did, but Rastafari didn't, right? Yes. And so so School of the Sacrament was kind of built to and again, this is a model which is not, I've always practiced this model in one way or another. Mortimer Planner was there at UE, for a while, right? So we have His Majesty's example, always, right? So it's to be able to have to get to the point where we have an institution connected to a lot of other institutions, which help ones and ones to become accredited in particular kind of practices and domains, whereby they wouldn't be able to have an opportunity simply if they tried to go through the formal university system. Yes. But that this accreditation is real. It's not. It's not fake. It's not fakery, right? So it's to build a kind of parallel university system, right, connected to the formal university system, right? Because most of the ones involved in it are either doctors, doctors accredited by universities, or they work in universities. Yes. But to do a parallel kind of thing, right, so that we can shut down that gap between the interpreters and the interpreted, the knowers and the known, democratize it, and then think about how we can actually build knowledge for the world on that basis. So one very, very quick, flippant kind of example, right? The I would know about things like interdisciplinarity. Yes. Right? You do political science, but you also do some history, right? You do literature, but you also do some sociology. but the interdisciplinarity in the formal FORMAL university system is very constrained, right? And it already comes about, and it already is generated by a series of assumptions about how the world works. And those assumptions are things like how we started off. You can't do agriculture and learn agriculture and learn cosmology at the same time. You can't, like how Priest Kailash does in St. Lucia, esoteric knowledge about herbs and medicine, right? No, you can't do that, right? Well, what if a Rastafari university had expertise in agriculture, growing, and philosophy, agriculture and cosmology, right? And students did those two things together, right? You couldn't really do that seriously in a university, but indigenous universities already try and do that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So in other words, they make the connections between different streams of knowledge, which are intuitive to them, right? And which help to solve a problem on their own terms, how they interpret the world, right? And these are not just fly-by-night things. These have real high stakes involved.
I like that.
How do you survive as a people? How do you creatively survive, as Walter Rodney put it? How do you flourish as a people in constrained environments, right? So if you think about the genius of Rastafari, it is making them connections which serve the people and then building something else from that knowledge base, using some of the techniques, like His Majesty said, you need to know bureaucracy in this world. But that doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice everything else. His Majesty said it. It doesn't, all the modernization in the world means nothing if you don't keep a spiritual anchor, because it's about what all this means. What's it for? What purpose does it serve? You see what I'm saying? So now, so this is to my mind, the first thing that I have to do in a Rastafari university. We have to congregate the political scientists and agriculture people, the engineers and the cosmologists, right? The people of music, the people of language, the people of math. You see what I'm saying? That to my mind, I'm not saying we're there. I'm just saying
no. This is what we're talking about. I'm gonna free you from the chains. My next question is gonna free you from the chains that you're experiencing currently. My next question is or scenario. Let me give you a scenario. I'm going to call you and I'm going to wire you 10 billion pounds. You have 10 billion pounds to set up a Rastafari university. Take me through your thought process. I'm freeing you from all of the chains and budgetary constraints as a department chair. I'm giving you 10 billion pounds. Ras Robbie, talk to I.
That's so difficult, Ras Kwasi, and that might, no, I'm being honest. That's one of the reasons why I need ones in all different kind of spaces.
Yes.
Do you get what I mean? Because my space is a formal academic space, and I have to administer in that space, and it gives me some experiences and some opportunities, and it gives me some constraints, right?
Yes.
And then the free thinkers are freer than I am to think through this. But let me get, and so that's why I think we need this, not either or, but it's and.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You know what I'm saying? So now I think let me concretize that a little bit.
Yes.
Climate change. So one knows, ones in islands are suffering. Ones on the continent are suffering. El Nino, I know, I go to Zimbabwe regularly, and our whole agricultural cycle is put off now by El Nino, droughts, different times where the rain comes and then the rain suddenly comes, bam, washes things away, or it doesn't come. One can even talk about where I live. Black people in the US tend to live in places which are hotter because there's not so many trees. It's urban jungles and stuff like that. Right? Or they live in places which are more flood prone, right? So even in a city like Baltimore, where I live, the richer and the whiter you are, the more you'll live in places which have trees, which protect you from the heat, and higher ground, which protect you from the floods, right? The blacker and the poorer, the more likely you'll live places where there's no tree cover and where you're going to get flooding.
Wow.
Right. So climate change now is not a national issue. It's a Pan-African issue. So now let's have a Department of Climate Study on that basis. This is a Pan-African problem.
You're spending the billions. That's what I wanted to hear. I want to hear how you're spending the billions.
Urban. Do you know what I'm saying? So now we're not thinking about what is it that the people in the West can teach the people on the continent. Do you get what I'm saying? We're thinking more horizontally. What is it that binds us all together? You know, what are the different practices in different places that we could convene together and figure out what the solutions are? How can we scale up them solutions in ways which are appropriate to the particular locales? And for those, we will need scientists. Yes. We will need scientists, man. Do you know what I mean? We'll need sociologists. You know what I mean? We'll need cultural people. We'll need anthropologists. We'll need anthropologists in the best sense of the term. You know,
multidisciplinary.
Right. We'll need the spiritual people. You know what I mean? To help interpret what does this climate change mean in terms of how one's understand the cosmos. You know what I mean? What is this apocalyptic? What is this, right? You get what I'm saying? So, and we need the economists.
Yes.
You know, how do you collectively finance solutions? How do you get solutions which are affordable and make sense and meaning to people? And how can you scale that up? And of course, you know, like the African continent, you know, they've been like in the West, we kind of bemoan this thing that, oh my God, we used to have, you know, proper electricity supply, proper phones, national grids, and all that national grid stuff is falling apart. Well, welcome to the African continent, because after colonialism, you know what I mean? No one gave any money to keep them things going.
Yes,
and those things only ever served a small group of people. It never served the masses. Yes. So now people on the African continent have got a lot of experience in how you actually shimmy things up. You make things up from the ground. You don't even pretend that there's a national grid. You know what I mean? Because that thing ain't worked for decades.
Exactly.
So now how do you get like radios, which you know, solar power? How do you get AC solutions and water saline and stuff like that? You get what I'm saying?
I was in Africa during COVID, and I can tell you, Africa is uniquely positioned to weather this coming Armageddon on Earth because of the lack of development. It's kind of put Africa in a very ingenuitive, don't let me make up a word, but the ingenuity of the African continent, you know what I mean? They're very well positioned to weather, you know, a shipping deficit, or you know what I mean, or
thank you, Ras Tafari. Thank you. So look, coming off of that, right? So here's the thing again about who do we think have the skills to solve humanity's problems, and who do we think don't? Who's closer to God? Who's not? Right now, you know, like you know, on the African continent, you know, you got a problem with your car with the battery's not working, right? In the West, you go in the garage and then they'll charge you $500 for a new battery, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you go to a little garage, people will get a Coke cap, you know, from Coke bottle, and do get the thing working. Yeah. So now I want that person. That's the person I want. That's the person I want in the university.
Yes.
I want them speaking to the economists, right? To the engineers, to the sociologists. You got what I'm saying?
Connectivity.
Not to keep it at that level, but to scale that up.
Yes, connectivity. So this is the difference in the Rastafari University, and this is how Ras Robbie is spending the £10 billion that I wired into his account. We're funding. This is the Department of Climate Change that you're talking about. We're funding. Because talk to us about how important funding is for research at the university level, and how that dictates the priorities of said universities. Talk to us about, you know, because as we conceive this Rastafari University, we also have to be thinking about funding. You know, there's endowments, there's other things, but talk to us about that nexus between funding and educational research.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, what ones need to understand that these resources are just incredible. And there is a pecking order and a hierarchy with universities, from community colleges up to the big R1s and the Ivy Leagues and the ones with really massive endowments, right? Endowments run, you can draw on an endowment at pretty much 4%. Let me give you an example. If let's take, for example, a graduate student. So right now, probably a graduate student, you'd need 80 or 90K a year. Rough. I'm just kind of making it up, but just generically.
Yeah.
To fund a graduate student, give them a stipend, pay their fees, healthcare, all the other incidentals, right? That would be a $2 million endowment just for one graduate student, because 4% of 2 million is about 80 grand. So if you're talking about sustainability, right, and you're talking about the endowment model, that's the kind of figures you're looking at. That's just one.
One person, $2 million.
Right. Now, in my university, one of our alumni is Michael Bloomberg. And, Bloomberg is a billionaire, and he's one of these billionaires who's made this pledge, I think, to, give away a lot of the money, right?
Yes.
He gave Johns Hopkins a $1.8 billion endowment, right, to ensure that all the undergrads, none of the undergrads graduate with debt.
Wow.
So, you do a test, if your parents are rich and you pay something, if your parents are not, the university pays.
Oh,
now, that is a wonderful thing, let me tell you, because I see the change in my classes in terms of the composition of students. It's not all rich kids from global elite anymore. Let me tell you, it's a very diverse crowd, and it's excellent, right? Now, here's the thing. If only every institution had a Michael Bloomberg. If only Lions Voice Network had a Michael Bloomberg.
That's what I'm saying. And the millionaires and the billionaires, they love Rastafari. We're just waiting. I know that's why I started the Ubuntu Lion Pride. If you give a contribution over $50 US, you become part of the Ubuntu Lion Pride. I'm millionaire and billionaire friendly over here.
Well, no, because now the thing is, there are very millionaires and billionaires on the African continent.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Now, you're talking about research. Let's just think about doing a survey in a neighborhood. Say we do the climate change thing. Who's got AC, who hasn't got AC, who can afford it, who can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. Right? So now you need people going around, knocking on the doorsteps, for a period of time, collecting information. You might need data power. You might need computer power to run the numbers, right? Suddenly you have to pay all these people. You need the space to keep the thing in. You need researchers to interpret the data. You need resources to then go and disseminate the data. You see what I mean? So all of these things match up. And a simple survey like that, done well, is going to cost you at least 100 grand.
Wow.
I mean, probably more. Yeah. It depends. But I'm just saying. Now think about where we are with data science. Data science is evolving at such a pace. That there are programs now, there are models which now interpret off this video which we're doing now. They will interpret the audio. They'll interpret the visual to try and get emotion and all that kind of stuff. Right, and then they will do an AI thing, and that will match it to their database. Then they'll come up with some idea about how the Rastafari feel about X, Y, and Z, and they'll use this data. The amount of power needed to process all this data is incredible.
One of the things that's happening right now is this thing that the grid in America is being strained by the use of AI, because of as you say,
it's a contributor to climate change.
Yes.
It's a contributor. It's one of the bigger contributors, and it'll only get bigger. I'm just saying that in terms of now, to think about. So some things we're going to need. Some things we're going to need to draw on other people's resources. There's no way around that. That's why I'm saying it's an and. You see what I'm saying? We do our thing and we connect when we need to connect. because the data centers are hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
And I wanna big up Sister Fanai Rastafari TV. She always say, Rastafari, we need to invest in servers, data storage. We need to have our own, because the grid can go down at any time, and we're over reliant on the wider grid, and we don't. We're hosting even YouTube. We give thanks.
That's right.
Facebook, we give thanks, but we don't own any of these platforms.
That's right.
All of this knowledge is being stored on these platforms. So
and I think that's right, Rasquasi. And I think this is where, if we're talking practically, we got to think about this. And where is it that I can build independent institutional capacity, and where is it that we need to not beg and steal, but where is it that we need to build collaborations and partnerships with?
And that's the model of His Majesty.
Fellow travelers, even don't have to be Rastafari.
That is the model of His Majesty. He used foreign investment and foreign assistance to build his school system. Every nation on earth almost built a school in Ethiopia. He imported teachers. He had Jesuit priests that were teaching from Canada at the university, and some of the other. Took a lot of flack for it, from the Orthodox Church and from the nobility. He took a lot but he had to deal in the practical. He couldn't deal in the ideal. He had to find people who could execute the vision. And what he did is, over time, he would switch them out with Ethiopians. So when their contracts expired, they would be renewed, and an Ethiopian would step into the role who had been shadowing or training. This is how Ethiopia Airline was built as well. I mean, the Agricultural College, all of these different, was built in a partnership with Agricultural University in Oklahoma, I believe it was. So every trip that His Majesty made, all of the bridges he built were with a mind of partnering, so that he could bring home and scale this indigenous knowledge into institutions, which is why Ethiopia has not been divided up to this day, because of how intricately woven Haile Selassie, intricately woven through institutions. He used the educational system, which he reserved to himself, to tie these tribes and these separate kingdoms into a fabric, which, they've tried to divide and still have not succeeded. So we give thanks for that model. But we're going to need private investment. We're going to need government investment for this Rastafari University. And we're going to also have to use the crowdfunding initiative, which is, what I do with the Patreon, because I think small donations from a large mass, is one of the most liberating funding source, because the danger, and we have to talk about this because we're a Rastafari platform, when you have these big donors, is that their priorities now become the priorities of the institution, because they are giving this largesse, every year, and then naturally, you want to keep that largesse coming, so you're going to tailor your curriculum. Your research projects are going to be tailored to meet the needs of these large donor class. So,
nothing comes for free.
What are we? One of the things that I want to do with Rastafari Independent Non-Aligned Media is we have to re-educate our people that we have to self-fund our liberation through small contributions. So, if it's $5 here, $10 here, find things within the Rastafari family that you believe in and support them with your money. Make sure that we are circulating our dollar, because no one is coming to save us. So whether it's SOSACRU, whether SOSACRU has a model of funding, and we can talk about that offline in terms of, creating some type of subscription or crowdfunding aspect to the SOSACRU ecosystem. But I think all of us have to move in this direction, because, again, over-reliance on the philanthropists has its pitfalls.
That's right. There's interdependency and there's dependency. And they're not the same thing. That's right.
You know what I mean? So, and again, I'm with you. It's not a either. It's not a either or. It's an and. You know what I mean? It's taking all of these, and this is.
But and is a powerful thing.
Yes, it
Because
is.
it's a multiplier. Either or is a divider, but and is a multiplier, if you get what I'm saying. So I think this is, but it means one has to come with something. You know what I mean? So what the I saying about the crowdsourcing is fundamental. Otherwise, one is just going to be dependent.
That is it. And
That's true.
we don't like to pay for things, Robbie. I'm sorry. I know you know the people because I know you're a community man. We like freeness, you know what I mean? And this is where the re-education comes in is because we do pay in Babylon, we do find the money to pay in Babylon because we do have flat screen TVs, we have cable, we have a couple of services, whether it be Amazon or Netflix or whatever it is. So we do pay, but in terms of that self-love and making sure we're intentional about identifying Rastafari platforms to support, this is where the re-education has to happen, because every Rastafari platform I know is a volunteer platform, including the Lion Voice Network. And we can't sustain on volunteer work. So
That's true. That's right.
you know what I mean?
And like Ras Kwasi, I think that's really important what the I said. So, whenever in a university setting, you put together a grant, proposal for some kind of research, the biggest outlay every time by far is wages. You have to pay people to do the work. You have to pay grads, you have to pay postdocs, you have to pay researchers, you have to pay people in the community sometimes, to do the works for you, right? That is the biggest thing. Now, we think about His Majesty, using his own funds to finance education. It wasn't free. You get what I'm saying? And if we are going to value things, it's not commercial. It's not making it like, all that we value is the number. But if we are going to value what I do, none of I work for free all the time for everything. Otherwise, we can't live. And that's never been the case. In one way or another, ones get compensated. Even if it's not money, ones get compensated. So we have to think about this kind of thing. It's really, I'm with the eye on that. If we are doing everything voluntarily, which is a virtue, it's unsustainable.
And we're going to be talking about this subject because SOSACRU is an evolving institution, and I would love to do some more panels and different things where we really look at it, and the community needs to know so that they can support financially the work that SOSACRU is doing. You know what I mean? And that's one thing I'm very much pushing on this platform. Don't just support the Lion Voice Network. I have my Lion Pride on Patreon that supports me monthly financially, and I'm trying to grow that number to 1,000 people to get to a certain sustainability, but I always say, don't just support the Lion Voice, find other Rastafari platforms, and let's get into the habit of spending. And we know that it's hard times, but we also know that if we don't invest, we will languish because no one is coming to save us. This government-to-government repatriation and reparation will only happen when we are in a position of power to make the demand. And that's one of the things that, this concept that you're just going to appeal to the morality of government and they're going to do the right thing has never worked in the history of the world. It's always a power dynamic, whether it's you're in the streets and it becomes that or it becomes something else, boycott or something. But governments don't just act out of the kindness of their hearts. So we need to put ourselves in a strong economic position. We need to start the process of repatriation so that they can see that this is something that is ongoing, and then the governments will come in and be persuaded to jump on the bandwagon. And I think our university structure, being able to mold the minds, our best and our brightest through our own system, I think it's crucial. Now, let me ask another thing. We talked about the role of the church in a Rastafari University. Do we discuss the divinity of His Majesty, or how do you look at that part? It's been a divisive thing within the movement, whether it's 12 Tribe, Nyabingi, Bobo Shanti. We're just getting over some of that divisiveness. I think we're getting to a good place. But how do you approach that at a university? Because I do think some type of aspect of that, or the ability to study that in a structured way has value. But how would I see that?
I mean, I think there's a number of ways, and I think when the way that I take it, whenever I reason on the divinity of His Majesty and now Empress Menen, it's never just simply about the question of the divinity of His Majesty. It's always about how I live. You got what I mean? There's always a reason and a purpose. There's a purpose for that reason.
Yes.
Right? It's not just scholastic, for its own sake. So if we take that, right, that model, then we can think about it in slightly different ways in university settings. So there are universities which are seminaries. They have training for real esoteric stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So now we have our connections to the Tewahedo, and you know what I mean. So that can be a part. That is that part, right?
Yes.
Then there are parts about, well, what does it mean? What does it mean sociologically? What does it mean for the way in which we live socially as a society? To talk about the divinity of His Majesty and of Empress Menen. So that in all these different ways, what we're doing is we're remembering, right, that all the reasoning on the divinity of His Majesty was always and is always for a purpose. Faith without works is dead.
Really?
Right? So that's the way that I would see it, to set it up not as a and this can be done in other spaces, right? But not as a okay, here's the definitive truth. There's no reasoning about it. This is what it is. Learn it, write it down. Now you're done. Right? What we do is we have to take the thing that we are best at, and that is reasoning.
Reasoning, yes.
Right? And so now suddenly the divinity of His Majesty becomes something which can be an incredible resource for all the different questions about humanity, the mind, the individual, the universe, right? It can be the gateway for all of that, right? You see what I mean? So that's how I can structure it. And again, if you think about where we started with the emic and the etic, right? The emic, the divinity of His Majesty. The etic would be, this is ideology, this is, displacement of individual subjectivity onto something, blah, blah, all these kind of, psychoanalytic terms and all that, right? But we would just stick with the divinity.
Really?
But that doesn't, but through that, we're doing all this different stuff. All this different interdisciplinary things, we can link that up to climate change, even. and family life with crying children.
Your children have been so good. Robbie is on fatherhood duty, and they have shared their father for so long. So we're not gonna keep the bridging much longer. The youths them have been so beautiful. You know what I mean? But I know that daddy duty is calling.
Yes, it is, man.
Greetings.
Yes, Corky, can you say?
Greetings.
Yeah, okay,
say hi to the people on YouTube.
Yes, Ras Kwasi, it's been an honor and a privilege.
Yes, yes, yes.
Many more reasonings to come, man.
Yeah, and I want to thank the before you go though, we have John Rogers who says Robbie is a legend, and we didn't, you didn't just tell us the legend, please.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I feel like that, but if John Rogers wants to say that, he's entitled.
And I agree, because I was very impressed. I didn't know the levels when I was just doing as I said, my Google searches. The eye work is extensive. We didn't get to go deep into the eye work on decolonizing university and higher education. That's for part 2. We don't do just one part on the Lion Voice Network. We don't do this is an ongoing reasoning. You have joined the Lion Pride family with your appearance here. I just want to thank the eye again. It's been very enlightening, and I think people will enjoy it, or full joy. I think ones are going to full joy this reasoning. And it's opened up some very key thought process for I and I as a global Rastafari family. Give us some final sounds that you would like to leave the Lion Pride family, and then also let them know how they can tap in with the eye.
Well, they can find my email, and I'll answer email. I might not answer it straight away, but I will answer it.
Yes.
And I think really, I want more Rastafari in university. I want more Rastafari to start universities, and I want all of I to connect up, because I think that's where it is, just like the I is doing. So the I set the standard here, so we give thanks for that. Yes, sir.
Give thanks. When I graduated from Howard, I graduated with 7 Rastafari brethren.
There we go.
Of 2000. So, but I haven't seen it since that time. I haven't seen that strong presence. When I was on campus, we had a very strong Rastafari presence on the campus. But I haven't seen it. But we're gonna push forward. I want to thank the eye once again.
Yes.
Very powerful family. You heard it here. Dr. Robbie Shillingford, Robbie, here on the Lion Voice Network for the first time, first of many conversations or conversations. We are going to continue this until we see the manifestation, because we didn't even talk about what the campus look like. The panels and the this and the that and the off the grid and the that. You know what I mean? So there's so much aspects of this Rastafari, and I want us to continue to visualize and conceptualize until we make manifest this vision, because remember that Zion starts in the heavens and then it descends onto the earth. So that's what we're here to do as Rastafari Independent Non-Aligned Media. I want to thank all of I and I. We're on a new day, Wednesday. Big up Freeway Dread, Lion Pride on Patreon. Never leave I and I out. Been supporting from the early days. Spread the word. We have a new day. We have all new guests lined up. We're going to be pressing the gas. Give thanks for everyone being patient with us. I'm just coming forward from Jamaica. I was in Hurricane Barrel. We also lost one of our dear community members, Mama Pauline. I want to just livicate this to Brother John, Mama Pauline. She was a treasurer of IDOR. So, the entire community have been thrown kind of off. So the fact that you haven't seen I and I, we're dealing with a lot of situation behind the scenes. That said, we're going to try to get forward to our regular posting schedule. Tons and tons of content. So make sure that you subscribe, you like, and you share. Why? Because the time has come for the lions and the lionesses to tell our own story. And this is the Lion Voice. Rastafari. Blessings.
Yes, job people, this is Michael Shamaya representing. I say, hear the Lion Voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Ras Tafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice. Ras Tafari.
The time has come for lions to tell our own story. Yes, you're listening to Lion's Voice. I is Shilliam from the island of St. Croix. Yeah, I'm bringing to your Rastafari vibes. Can you feel it? Rastafari. Babylon born when Rasta come together. Can you feel it? Rastafari, because Babylon done when I and I come together. Look how we live together, look how we work together, Oh, Babylon done when Rasta come together. Here like Rastafari, His Majesty and Empressment and blessed. Yeah man, hailing from St. Croix, Rastafari, I hear you.
Aye.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lion's Voice. Now put it, I jolly for say that.
Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to Lion Voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here. Hear me now. Oh, yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
Lion voice.